If you haven't been watching Bleach, the 1,000-Year Blood War, you might want to check it out. I just got back from a trip to India and recently saw episodes 6 and 7 and just had to make a video about it. But don't worry, my patrons have voted and a video about Demon Slayer is on the way as well. I'm sorry if I sound a little weird. I've been fighting this head cold and have some throat and sinus issues, but I should be back to 100% soon enough. But anyway, let's dive in. This is what makes these 2 episodes so special. We finally get to see Yamamoto Genryusai, head captain of the Gotai 13 and leader of the 1st Division in full combat mode. We spent 366 episodes in vanilla Bleach just hoping that Yamamoto would show up, and he kind of did during the Aizen fight, but it was mostly just to go full Master Roshi. Now, we get to see him in all of his glory, unleashing his Bankai and going all out in glorious combat. His opponent is none other than... Yhwach? Yahweh? Yeah. How do you pronounce this?
Yhwach.
Yhwach と源流祭の
Yhwach.
Ah, okay. I think it's pronounced Yhwach. Before we get too far into the analysis, I've got to let you know that this video will contain some pretty major spoilers for episodes 5, 6, and 7 of the 1,000-Year Blood War. So if you haven't seen them yet, please go watch them. It's so worth it. Alright, I think the first thing we should do is examine these 2 characters' designs and names. When you're telling a story, having strong character names and unique designs is so important. This can give your audience a really strong impression and a memorable imprint of your character and help set the tone for who they are and what they stand for. Let's look at Yamamoto Genryusai first. He has a very traditional and dignified sounding Japanese name. His design is an interesting one. He is bald, but has a very long beard, mustache, and eyebrows. This automatically suggests 2 things. First, he looks like a samurai, and second, he has spent an insane amount of time honing his technique. Anyone who can grow epic eyebrows like this is a man of focus, commitment, and sheer will. Plus, we know he is the oldest captain of the Gotai 13, and therefore, it is reasonable to assume he is the strongest. If we then consequently look at Yhwach, an opposite effect occurs. His name doesn't strike terror into your heart. They don't call him Morthrak the Annihilator, or Death God 9000. His name is almost confusing. It conveys a sense of otherliness. It is a strange name. You're not really sure how to pronounce it or what it means. I believe it is meant to convey a sense of things long forgotten. We know that he is the king of the Quincy's, but even then we aren't really sure what that means. Up until this point in the show, the only thing that we really knew about the Quincy's was that they were all...
Gay!
Well, I was gonna say wiped out, and that Ishida was the only one left. That's one of the things that I love about Taito Kubo's storytelling in Bleach. The Soul Reapers all had Japanese-styled names. The Arankar and Espada had a strong Spanish influence, and now the Quincy's seem to have a Franco-Germanic styling to their names and attacks. For Yhwach's appearance, he has long hair and an epic mustache, and he wears a cape fastened by a single brooch. This cape shrouds the rest of his body when he's standing, furthering the mystique of his character. What's really going on under there? And this mystery helps make this fight more hype. All we know of Yhwach's past is that he was strong enough to withstand one encounter with Yamamoto and survive, and even though he was defeated, he possessed the strength to come back for round 2. We only know his power through its reflection and apparent equal footing to Yamamoto's own. This leads us to the action of episodes 6 and 7. We finally get to see Yamamoto go all out. The thing that initially struck me about this fight was that as soon as Yamamoto shows up, he rescues Kenpachi and then immediately starts swinging. He appears enraged, but the reason becomes quite clear. He is trying to make Yhwach draw his own sword so he can shatter it. Once he finally does draw his sword, things take a massive turn, and finally, after all of this time, we see Yamamoto's Bankai.
Bankai. ZANKA no TACHI.
Bankai.
The visuals and sound design here are so well done. You have no idea what has just happened, but you know it's both drastic and serious. It's such a cool effect. Essentially, Yamamoto has absorbed all of the flames that Ryujin Jaka had produced and channeled them into the blade of his katana. But it's a little more than that. This effect has such a drastic impact on the battlefield that it essentially terraforms the entire area. This base Bankai state is so powerful, yet it has this deceptively harmless look to it. The sword just looks like an ashy, wooden blade. There's also a massive heat wave that is produced when this Bankai is released, and it's so hot that even Hitsugaya's Bankai, an ice dragon named Hyorinmaru, can't be used. It starts melting instantly. Now let's talk Bankais for a second. Different Bankais do different things. Some are a form change for characters. Some are kind of like summons, and others can have special offensive or defensive capabilities. Yamamoto's is one of the more interesting ones in my opinion. It has 4 different main forms, and they are named after the cardinal directions: north, east, south, and west. His Bankai's name is ZANKA no Tachi, Longsword of the Remnant Flame. The first form is activated upon his Bankai's release. It's called ZANKA no Tachi Higashi, Kyokujitsujin, Longsword of the Remnant Flame East, Rising Sun Edge. This is the ashy sword that we see first. It has channeled all of his flames into the blade of the katana. It doesn't burn, erupt, or set things on fire, but anything that it touches is eradicated into nothingness. The second stage of this Bankai is West, ZANKA no Tachi Nishi, Zenjitsu Gokui, Longsword of the Remnant Flame West, Remnant Sun Prison Garb. The interesting thing about this form is that it too is activated upon the Bankai's release, but it isn't visible unless Yamamoto wills it. It cloaks his body in heat that reaches 15 million degrees. It becomes impossible to touch him while he is using his Bankai. Next we have ZANKA no Tachi Minami, Kaka Jumanakoshi Daisojin, Longsword of the Remnant Flame South, Great Burial Ranks of the 10 Trillion Fire Dead. If Yamamoto impales the tip of his sword into the ground, he can use his flames to bind the ashes of anyone he has ever killed and reanimate them to fight on his behalf. This mode of the Bankai erupts with such force that it destroys Yhwach's Kirkenlied, Sankt Svinger, or Holy Chant, Sanctuary Veneration. This is the single greatest protective magic of the Quincy's, and it gets busted pretty much immediately. In my opinion, this form of the Bankai was the most surprising. It essentially means that Yamamoto is a necromancer. He is, of course, a Shinigami, or Soul Reaper, one who is responsible for helping souls cross into the afterlife. The irony of this technique is not lost on Yhwach, who taunts his opponent for his hypocrisy of bringing the dead back to life. But even this isn't the most surprising aspect. Yamamoto specifically brings back people that Yhwach knows, his subordinates. These are people that were not only close to Yhwach, but that were killed by Yamamoto personally. There is this double dose of pain with this Bankai form. This level of psychological attack is extremely dark, and not one that I ever thought the head captain would use. If I had to guess, I think it shows just how angry he is at Yhwach for the pain he inflicted on Soul Society and the Shinigami that were mercilessly killed during both assaults. After Yamamoto lets this form of the Bankai stew for a bit, he unleashes the last form, ZANKA no Tachi Kita, Tenchi Kaijin, Longsword of the Remnant Flame North, Heaven and Earth in Ashes. This form is just a concentrated slash of fire and heat, which incinerates whatever it touches out of existence. In the art style, you see the absolutely overwhelming nature of this attack. As Yhwach falls, Yamamoto releases the Bankai, and it begins to rain as moisture floods back into the area. So that covers Yamamoto's Bankai, but what about Yhwach? Well, we briefly touched on his sword that he keeps sealed within himself. Once released, I was pretty surprised by the shape of the blade, but I shouldn't have been. All of the Shinigami blades have been katanas up to this point, and I really hadn't thought anything of it. Some of the Arankar had katanas too, like Grimmjow and Ulquiorra, but others didn't. Neutra had scythes, Haribel has a knife with a hollowed out blade, and Berrigan used a giant battle axe. It makes perfect sense that Yhwach has a different type of weapon, something other than a katana. This sword of his, the single curved edge and pointed back, looks a lot like a Turkish scimitar or a Persian shamshir. These are curved blades made in the 16th century Middle East. Although similar, this is not Yhwach's sword. The name for this style of blade is actually called a falchion, and they date back to Europe during the 13th century. This is another really interesting nod towards the historical European influence on Yhwach's character design. He summons a giant space sword down from the heavens, and this is what he uses to cut down Yamamoto Genryusai. After delivering the death blow, Yhwach blasts Yamamoto so that nothing remains of his body, and that basically concludes the battle. One of the most interesting things to me about this whole fight is the revelation we see at the opening of episode 7. Here, we get a flashback to Yhwach's first campaign as he wages war upon Soul Society. We catch a glimpse of the original Gotai 13 captains, but there's something more important that's revealed to us. As Yhwach and Yamamoto square up to fight, we see Chojiro emerge from underneath a pile of bodies and stab Yhwach in the back. Yamamoto then lights him up and the battle is finished. What's so fascinating about this is that Yhwach learns from his mistake. In the second siege of Soul Society, he absolutely takes care of the problem and kills Chojiro first. Yhwach then has one of his subordinates copy and pretend to be him on the battlefield. This copy is the person that Yamamoto has been fighting the whole time, and it's only once Yamamoto cuts him in half and hears him apologize that he realizes that something is wrong. This is not Yhwach. After having a private conversation with Aizen Sosuke, the real Yhwach appears. Drained from using his Bankai, Yamamoto immediately tries to unleash ZANKA no TACHI again, but Yhwach steals it instantly. Now he has the power to raise anyone he's ever killed back from the dead to fight for him. This whole fight was so spectacularly done in my opinion. I could keep gushing about it, but I think I will call it there. I've been having such a good time watching through the 1000-Year Blood War that I've barely watched any other shows. Chainsaw Man? Never even heard of her.
Excuse me, what are you doing?
That's how I roll.
I am totally kidding. I'm going to catch up soon on these shows, and I'm going to try to crank out videos faster than I ever have before. The Demon Slayer video is coming soon as well, so be looking forward to that. And hit me up on Twitter if you want periodic channel updates. Plus, it's kinda lonely over there, so if you want to talk to someone about anime, or anything really, feel free to say hello. A huge shout out to the patrons who made this video possible. Javi G and Elias Aksanov, you guys are absolute kings. If you would like to vote on content ideas, get early access to videos, or see your name in the credits, consider checking out the Patreon page. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Drew Malou, and I will see you storytellers in the next video.